There's this destructive energy which has brought on this crisis looming on our head. But there is equally a very proactive energy, which is very strong, very committed, very compassionate. It's not about men versus women, it's about masculine versus feminine energy. And I think it's that feminine energy which is slowly getting stronger and stronger. And it is going to work. That is what we need. Nature is also telling us to bring on that feminine energy. She needs that feminine energy to be back, to breathe, to prosper, to help us, to nurture us. So I am an optimist. I believe we will be able to do it for sure.
I'm Jessica Smith.
And I'm Diana Denka.
And this is Executives in the Wild, a podcast that interviews remarkable leaders and changemakers to understand why being connected to nature is so crucial to their happiness and professional success, and how it's helping them to make a positive difference in this world.
We want to showcase inspiring guests who have successfully integrated a connection to nature into their lives. We want to give our listeners a beacon of hope that there is a better way to lead in these uncertain times, one we can all lean into if only we dare to step into the wild. And our guest today is Mamta Borgoyari. Mamta is a development professional and trained economist. She currently serves as the executive director of She Changes Climate, an organization committed to promoting gender parity and women's leadership in climate action and policy. With over 27 years of experience in various fields, including environmental intersectionalism for climate justice, Mamta is dedicated to amplifying the voices of women and indigenous communities from the global south and integrating them in climate negotiations and decision-making. Throughout her career, Mamta has championed the rights of marginalized women and children. Her achievements include integrating over 800 school dropout children back into the education system, rescuing more than 12,000 children from human trafficking, child sexual abuse, and exploitation. Her work focuses on ensuring access to education, sustainable livelihoods, and human rights, particularly in the global south. She has been building the capacities of over 20,000 government stakeholders to provide services efficiently and compassionately. She has also facilitated more than 5,000 women in climate vulnerable areas in India to run their own small-scale businesses and provided professional training to over 300 women farmers collectives. She's recognized for her expertise and accomplishments, having been honored by Women Entrepreneur magazine as one of the top 10 women leaders of 2013 in India. She's an alumni of the prestigious International Visiting Leaders Program of the US government and is currently serving as a member of the Advisory Council of the Daughters of the Earth and an ambassador of the Women Climate Collective cohort of Fondation L'Oréal. Her belief in the power of holistic leadership and mentoring guides her work toward creating a more equitable and just world. A very warm welcome, Mamta, to the show.
Thank you so much, Diana and Jessica.
Indeed, thank you so much for joining us today, Mamta. We'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself and how did your love of nature start?
So let me start when I was very young. So I was born in a small city in India, in the eastern part of the country. A city which is crowded, full of people, buildings. Nature was very far off from where I was born. But I think as a kid, I was always very attracted to nature. I was very, very attracted. And we had a backyard garden, and I would find myself there, pulled there to the flower beds, to the trees, as a kid roaming around. And I remember my mother, because in India, in summer, particularly in the afternoon, you're supposed to be in bed and taking a nap because it's so hot. And my mother would always find me roaming around in the backyard garden. I started, my career as an economist. I was a trained economist, and I gravitated towards environment economics. I have to say, at that point of time, I did not have any awareness of what nature will become for me or is for me. It was just a natural move towards environment economics. I did agriculture economics, environment economics. And then I joined, I was working initially in the area of action research in environmental sciences. And that is when, and I was very young, just out of college. I moved into, I remember I was in Delhi University visiting a friend who had a meeting in one of the institutes which works on environment economics. And I was sitting at the reception and I looked at the notice, and there was a notice saying they're looking for a research assistant to do a project on natural resource accounting. And it was, and the interviews were going on, was a walk-in interview. And I don't know what, I just walked in while waiting for my friend to come. I walked into the interview, I sat there, and there I met also my guru, my professor, who has been my mentor forever till now, Dr. Gopal Kadikuji. Is an environmental economist himself. And my values, my knowledge is so much drawn from him and his values. So they asked me, the first question that they asked me was, have you ever been to a village? I mean, what is drawing you to this? And I said, I've never seen a village in my life. I've lived in the city. And they just said, all right, you're in. And, that project was in the Himalayas in one of the states called Uttarakhand in India. And the project was a natural resource accounting. So the project, basically, we were collecting data, trying to put a value to the services of nature so that, to kind of have an argument that Mother Nature is providing in financial terms, in economic terms, these kind of services. And that was my starting point. The first time I went to the mountains, it was it was a completely different experience for me. I stood there when we were driving up the hills and I saw the contours of the mountains. My heartbeat was like, it was beating fast. And so when we reached there, that evening, I sat outside the room, was watching the Himalayas. Completely, I cannot explain, it was like a completely different feeling. I just thought that I'm so much myself here. I felt deep connection within myself. And since then, I have been running to the mountains every time I'm anxious. I can't take it anymore. I am in a crisis and I have to manage it. I have to go to the mountains. I have to stand there and feel myself, feel rooted, connected. The mountain is where my soul rests, is what I have realized. So that's initial part of my work, particularly with research. And then, I became very frustrated because I continued asking my professors, what's happening? What changes are these research making in the life of those who are marginalized, who doesn't have anything? And so then my professor told me, it's time for you to move out from the research field and jump into the grassroots. I spent the next 19 years at the grassroots, and I worked with women and children in very marginalized areas, in remote areas, in climate vulnerable areas. And every time I felt that, there is so much of similarity between women who are vulnerable, who seems to be in despair, but are so much resilient. And every time you look at Mother Nature, you see the same nurture, you see the same resilience, you see the same kind of power, that they have. And So I worked there. I worked on, as you mentioned, I've worked on very, very critical areas, very sensitive areas, very painful areas of human trafficking, child sexual abuse. And then last year, because it was almost 27 years, I wanted to take a break and I wanted to think and reflect as to what I really want to do now, with whatever lessons that I've learned. And She Changes Climate happened, and I think that for me, it's a natural progression of my journey in life with Mother Nature and being able to give back what I have. I'm very grateful, and what I have got from my learning, spending time at the grassroots as well. So my professional journey and my journey learning about Mother Nature and what nature means to me and how it revitalizes me, re-energizes me. And I find myself in nature. Every time, believe me, every time I've lost myself in my personal life, in my professional life, it's been the mountains, which has given us me back.
Thank you so much, Mamta. Really beautiful. It resonates a lot. I'm also living in the mountains, and actually, I did a big trek to Machu Picchu, the Salcantay trek in Peru, where we went over pass of 4,000 meters, and the people there really believe that those big mountains, they call them the Apus. They are the mountain spirits that are guardians of the landscape. And the way you spoke about that awe, that resonance, that groundedness and rootedness when you felt yourself in the Himalayas for the first time very much reminded me of how these indigenous people think about the mountain spirits. Thank you. You described it so well, how your relationship with nature evolved over time. Basically had already had a childhood connection, and then it was your work that brought you out to nature, away from the city, where you discovered a newfound connection. I'm really curious, you mentioned that today, every time you're stressed or you feel ungrounded, you're running to the mountains, and that's where you find yourself. Can you tell us a bit more about that? What is it that you do in those times, and have you developed a certain habit or routine that helps you to connect to nature or to the mountains?
Yeah, so I think the first time I realized it was, when that it is the mountains where I need to go every time I have doubts, and is when we had gone. In the organization that I was working, it was a very critical time in terms of almost no funding, small grassroots organization. There were about 100 people working, and everybody, I had to ask everybody to leave. I had to close programs with women groups, and I was having a series of meetings with team members to see how can we really introduce this news slowly, one by one. And what am I going to do? What am I going to tell the team? How am I going to face the women with whom I'm working? And this is at this point, I was desperate. I couldn't sleep. The whole night. And I was in Delhi at that point. And, I just decided that next day I'm going to, pack my bag and move to the mountains, go to the mountains. I didn't book anything. I looked for an ashram. And that's where I found my to-go place, ashram that I run to every time I'm in desperation. So I went there, and I spent doing nothing. I didn't know about meditation at that point of time. I didn't know anything. I just went there and I just dumped my bag, and I sat there, just quietly doing nothing, no thinking, doing nothing. 2 days, 2 nights is what I did. Then after 2 days, I felt good. I felt that, I don't have the answers, but I need to go back. It's my duty, right? I have no answers, but I felt very calm. And I went back. And things started falling in place. And what I realized is that it's not that there were no solutions before. It's just that being there in nature reassured me about myself, and just I felt what I need to do is just be myself, just be yourself. You don't have to be brave. You don't have to be, just because you're a leader, you don't have to say, I know all the answers. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show your despair that you don't know what to do, and do it with everybody. Be vulnerable, open up, be yourself. And I started doing that. I started telling them, this is the crisis, and I don't know, but we will try together. But it just, everything slowly started taking place. And I think what the difference was is just me. It's just me, my mind, my brain, the way I was reacting to things. I think that's something that I realized, that is something when I realized that it is the mountains. And I've done it even last year, I've done it every time. Last year, actually, I should tell you, my transition to She Changes Climate was similarly because of this. I decided to leave the previous organization where we're working with 130 people across 14 states. I've been there for 13 years, but I knew I had to be out. But, every time I would bring that topic, I would be saying, no, you can't leave, and so on. I went to the mountain because something inside me was telling me I was not in peace. So I went to the mountains. And I came back, and things started falling in place. And I had the courage to put in my papers and take the final decision. The courage. I think I draw courage. Every time I go back, I go to nature, I bring courage. So I realized that it is for me to be in my own self. Every day I need to do what makes me happy, feel happy the most, which is being in nature. So every day morning, I live in Gurgaon, which is again a city, but we have a beautiful park there. Whether it is summer, whether it is winter, whether it is raining, I love, love, love to go there. I talk to the trees. I tell them how much I love them. It's a crazy talk that I do, and sometimes am I mad? But then I think it doesn't matter. Literally, I talk to the flowers in my little balcony garden. I tell them how beautiful they are, and I draw my happiness, my inspiration from there.
That's so perfectly observed. And I loved when you said, I go into nature and I bring back courage. And what you expressed, it says a lot about being in tune with your level of resilience. And I'm wondering now that you are able to kind of take the temperature of your resilience and know when you go into nature and know when you need, this topping up, do you feel braver to take on bigger and bigger challenges?
Yes, because I draw my inspiration from Mother Nature. I remember one incident. We had gone in one of the organizations we were working. We were gone, we went for a trek, very difficult trek. So about 40 of us went for a very, very difficult trek up into the mountains, again, the Himalayas. And we reached the base where we had to retire for the night. And it was a 3-day trek. And that 3-day trek, what happened was, being with nature reveals the true self of everybody. You cannot hide yourself. You cannot put on a fake image of yourself. It slowly falls off. For me, I found the strength and the weaknesses in my team. I saw who should be placed where, who should be leading what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, and including mine. Most importantly, what is my as a leader, what is my, strength and what are my weaknesses. I think that what I draw inspiration from and what I feel the world needs today is what Mother Nature, inherent nature is, which is nurture, which is compassion, which is care, which is love, which is resilience, which is strength. Leadership today, at every level, from politics to the ground level, requires this feminine, nature-driven skills. It is, if you look around, and that's what I think, and every day, that's what I realize, that when I look around the world where conflict, war, look how far away they are from how Mother Nature inherent characteristics is. Mother Nature nurtures, they kill. Mother Nature is soft, compassionate, take care. They're aggressive. They deny. Mother Nature gives, they take. It's so clear. And see what has happened to the world. So I feel I draw my huge inspiration of leadership from Mother Nature. And I have to say that I'm extremely inspired by Zen and the art of saving the planet. It's like it's like I breathe it in within me.
Me too. I've actually been told I have to stop mentioning it because I've reached my limit of how much I think the word is proselytizing, but I do recommend it to everyone.
Me too. Yeah.
Mamta, listening to you, it's very clear that through this ongoing relationship with nature, you have grown a lot. You have reflected a lot on and listened to how nature works and try to mimic that in your own leadership. I'm really curious. Did you have a time or a moment where you felt that encountering nature became transcendent, almost spiritual, which affected the way you think about your own purpose or the purpose of life?
Yeah, I think there is this one incident, we had gone. So in the organization, so one of my leadership approach is to take the team out into the wild every year. And, I have been doing it. I haven't done it so far in She Changes Climate, but in the previous organizations, every year, I would surprise the team. So I would not tell them where we are going. I would plan it with one of the, operations head. And everybody would get their tickets only they would be told to reach the airport or the railway station or whatever. And everybody's like, where is she taking us this time? So I love that. It was a very interesting, I love that kind of everybody trying to find out where is her mind this time. Is it the desert? Is it hills or is it the water? So, we used to do this, and we had gone rafting on River Ganges, and we did the most difficult. So we were at the most difficult part of the rafting, and that night we camped on the bank of River Ganges. And in the morning it was very. So we had the next day was going to be very, very tough. But the day before, the whole morning we had fun, frolic, and we were jumping in. It's almost like I was observing. We were trying to think that the river, the beaches or the banks are something that we are occupying. We were playing. It was we. That night, when all of us went to sleep and we were in our tent, and, I went to bed and I woke up with the sound of the waves, the tides, I couldn't stay inside. So I went out of the tent and I sat on the banks of the river Ganges flowing, and it was dark. I was looking at the mountains and I was looking at the river. I sat there and I realized how inconsequential we are in front of Mother Nature. I felt like not even a dot, I felt it will take her less than a second to just wipe us off. This, kind of, we are nothing. And then when you look at it and then you say, there's the mountain, there's the river, there's the bank, here I am. We're so much one, And that is something I realized, that while there is love, nature, love, compassion, care, nurture, the other side of what nature teaches us is to be fierce when required to be. Fierceness is something, I'm a Hindu, and in Hinduism, you look at Lord Shiva, who is the creator, sits on his abode is the mountain. And then Shakti, Kali, the fierce Kali, is the protector, destroyer. She destroys anything that is going to be bad for the humanity. She's woman. She's a woman who does that. And she has a very, very other part of her, which is Goddess Durga, as we say, who is, is a protector, who is a mother, who is everything. But the fierceness of Kali is, for me, and I really, really, not worship, I'm not very religious, but I believe, so I'm spiritual. I believe that they are just all the gods everywhere, everything. First of all religion says the same thing. You read about, whether it's a Quran, Bible, or the Gita, they say the same thing. There's just one God. And who is that? It's the universe, Mother Nature, actually. So I draw a lot of that fierceness, the reminding myself that I have to be fierce when it requires to me. And that is almost spiritual for me, that is, I take that very spiritually. In fact, my purpose of joining She Changes Climate is, I very, very strongly believe it is my spiritual purpose. It's my spiritual journey. And when I look back in my life, starting from when I first walked into Institute of Economic Growth, and then my entire career has been like preparing me to do this, to do something worthwhile. I think, so my career, my profession is my spiritual journey. Actually, I just take it as a spiritual journey, very much committed to protecting and bringing back the dignity that Mother Nature has been deprived of by us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Mamta, it's clear so much of your career journey has been influenced by nature, and you gave a great example of, how it actually concretely influences your management decisions as well. When you mentioned how you took your team out and you could see, where the team members' roles were best placed in the really revealing, personal profiles that you could see when people are out in nature. Do you have other examples of how time in nature influences your leadership or your management decision making?
Yeah, I think so. Last year, She Changes Climate, we had a very difficult, challenging. We were growing, we were doing amazing work, but there was a whole lot of challenges in terms of values, in terms of just where the movement wants to go. It was a very challenging time for the team, particularly to kind of keep up to the expectations that everybody was having, external world was having, yet being able to maintain the values that the movement started with, as a founder, as a Bianca and Antoinette, as our founders, the values that they had. And I think when I joined in, that is, my purpose of joining the movement was the alignment in values that I saw. she changes climate. And I think we had a last 8-9 months have been extremely challenging for us internally, and to kind of maintain that value system, take risks, um, you know, do things which I think nobody, when they think through their mind, would do. So in all of it, the decision to stay on and take the challenge head on, like, was drawn from Shakti, Shakti, and which is driven from the Mother Nature's, what I said, fierceness to stand. And in, as you know, in Zen and the art of saving the planet, I'm sorry for bringing this in, it says fierce compassion. I just love it, that term, fierce compassion, and that is something that literally is at a point where I had to really decide whether it is worth the challenges, to take the challenges, to kind of let it be, for the values and for the movement that it is. My decision particularly was drawn from what Mother Nature would do in a situation like this. The second part that I've learned, and that is something I think in just my work as well, is listening. I don't know from where. I think when we go to Mother Nature, we become quiet, right? Generally, I mean, I don't know. I see people I become very quiet, and you listen. You can hear so many things that you would never listen when you will never hear when you are not listening. In the way you can hear a bird sound from so far away, you can hear a car when the road is miles and miles away. It's the power of listening that I really, really learned by being in nature, is something that I remind myself, particularly in cases where there is conflict, or maybe it's a conflict between what I think that this is what it is, or this is how it should be, versus listening to the other person. So listening as a skill is something that I am really learning even now. I am not perfected it yet. My own biases comes in, but I am learning to listen. And that is something that I have completely been exposed to while being in the hills, in the mountains.
I'm really wondering, listening to you, there's just so much insight and learning that comes to you through being in nature. It's incredible. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that leaders can give themselves, is to expose yourself to that kind of insight. Also wondering, do you think, or have you ever had a moment where the beauty of nature or the majesty of nature inspired the way your problem solving or your creativity or the way you innovate in your career?
Yeah, as I said, sometimes I think creativity, for example, and being able to look at the same thing with a different eye. This is something that I learned being in the small balcony garden that I have, which have different flowers and plants, and I realized how mood affects how we see things. So I would come back from office tensed and stand there, and you see the same garden, but you do not look. And then the morning when you get up, early morning you get up and you look at your flowers, you look at how beautiful, how the colors are different. It's how different, how creative Mother Earth is. I read that one book, The Braided Sweetgrass. Have you read that? Oh, I just love that book because, it is how innovative, how creative, how intelligent nature is. You look at every flower, when the color has survived, everything is about their survival. The color, the form, where they grow, where they don't grow, where they will flower, where they won't. All this is very much dependent on the enabling environment. So Mother Nature kind of demonstrates how enabling environment is important for us to be creative, for us to be more innovative, and how things are different, how two different things might not be similar, might not look similar, but can be independently very different and very beautiful and very useful, right? And I think that is that enabling. So when I go to the garden, this is something that I felt that the mood, when I go in and I really look, I can find beauty in the little flower. Maybe it's a wild little grass of flower which is grown there. You take a look at it and you know that it is very beautiful. And then when you bigger flowers, you look at them. So one thing is looking at things differently, which I feel is something that I have really, really learned by being with Mother Nature. The other is innovation, creativity, how it can go together. I think that's another lesson I think Mother Nature is trying to teach us. And I don't know whether we are still being able to learn what she wants to teach us. The indigenous knowledge and wisdom is actually teaching us what Mother Nature wants to teach us. And I am far, far behind in this, I have to say. I am nowhere near being able to grasp and use it in my work. And I think that's something I have to say I really want to improve also, to understand how innovation and creativity can be sustainable, and the importance of an enabling environment. That's something that I've learned, that enabling environment, you have to create an enabling environment for even leaders to flourish. We take so much of the pain, and we seldom have a platform where we can, really be vulnerable. And She Changes Climate, and that's why She Changes Climate. One of the main aim of She Changes Climate is to create this platform, provide this platform at country levels, at global levels, where leaders, strong-willed, powerful leaders, can come together, feel safe, and yet be vulnerable. I mean, I have learned and it took me a while, what I thought was my weakness always, which is I'm very emotional. And I can cry anything. I feel I'm sensitive. So I used to hide my tears all the time because I felt showing my tears is a sign of weakness for a long time. Then because you're a leader, nobody expects you to cry when you have rescued a child who is trafficked. They expect you to do things, tell you. But I would cry because I couldn't stop myself. And it took me a while. It took me to go to the plum village to, realize that my tears are indeed they are my strength. And I need to understand, be with it rather than reject it,
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I should say the podcast is not affiliated to or sponsored by the Plum Village Monastery, but I'm also a big fan. So Mamta, you clearly give back to nature through your climate advocacy, and we'd love to hear if there's other ways that you want to talk about. Obviously, climate advocacy is a lot on its own. If there are other ways that you give back to nature, whether through rewilding or financial contributions or other that you want to tell us about?
Yes. So one way that I do is, and I do it for my entire family on our birthdays, we always, collect and donate and plant trees for, there is a plant 1 million trees here program that is going on. So every event, anything to celebrate, that's something that I really do give back. The second is because I also live in a society. It's like a gated community. I slowly tried to introduce the concept of let's celebrate nature. So now we are celebrating Environment Day by planting trees, by getting all the residents together, the children together to plant and develop a park in the area. That's something that I do. Then the ashrams that I have, these are all in the mountains. There are two. So one is my ancestral ashram, which all of us are part of. It's on the bank of River Ganges. We contribute because they worship. For them, the River Ganges is they worship. So that's my way of also worshipping. And the ashrams which are there, I support them because they inculcate and they promote the value of being in nature. As of now, and I hope that my work will be able to, give back and the dignity that Mother Nature really, really deserves. She is so forgiving. We have almost, we have left her with, we are leaving her with nothing, and yet she gives. So I don't know how much we can return back, but I think if we can be kind enough and we can recognize that we draw our breath from nature, that if nature is not there, we are not there, and that is something I talk with children. So in my previous organization where I was working, we were working with schools. We started in the children's club. We started tree planting. We started talking about environment, creating more awareness. And through She Changes Climate, one of the things that we are also doing, which I want to talk about, is the young people, the youth, and bringing them into the climate and environment world. They are so innovative, so creative, and their strength and their power, and they are our future. They are our future leaders. So if we have more sensitive, more aware youth, we will have better politics, we'll have better policies, we will have more investments for nature and for women, which is lacking.
That's right. I mean, your entire work in She Changes Climate is lying on this ethos that if we are able to bring more women voices, more voices from the global south, from indigenous communities to climate negotiations where decisions are being made about the future of this planet, we are going to be able to inhabit a different planet. And so I'm wondering, how has your time in nature impacted the way you think about the future? Has it filled you with more optimism, with more despair? What is your stance on where we're going?
By nature, I'm very optimistic. I have to say, I don't give up so easily. I don't like to give up on people, on situation, on relationship, on myself. I don't want to give up so easily. I want to try my best. So I'm an optimist. And I believe that there are both, they're both the power, both the energies. There's this destructive energy, which has brought on this crisis looming on our head. But there is equally a very proactive energy, which is very strong, very committed, very compassionate, it's not about men versus women, it's about masculine versus feminine energy. And I think it's that feminine energy which is slowly getting stronger, stronger and stronger. And it is going to work. That is what we need. Nature is also telling us to bring on that feminine energy. She needs that feminine energy to be back, to breathe, to prosper, to help us, to nurture us. So I am an optimist. I believe we will be able to do it for sure. Anyway, the bubble for the other world is burst. Soon they will be one of those who lose their homes, maybe die because of extreme heat. So it's not very far when it's just like oxygen. You have to do something. You have to, now get to sustainable, renewable energy. You need to do that. So I believe that the collective of the feminine energy collective, or the other collective, which I believe I'm a part, I am or one of them, is growing stronger. It's women like you, it's women like, it's leaders like you. Even in politics, we have leaders. We have a very, very, that feminine energy coming in politics. I'm so glad with the UK elections having almost 48 to 50% of their parliament being women. I mean, it's happening. And I think we will be there. I am very optimistic.
That's great. I really liked what you said about the feminine energy and, just letting it out, because there was a case, I think it was about 2 years ago now, off the coast of South Africa, where there were flash floods, which have been linked to climate change, and 400 human beings were washed into the ocean, including many children and babies. And the day that happened, I just found it impossible to collect myself. And actually, it's the appropriate response. It's the only response when something like that happens, and it's happening, in a preventable way, that we can change the outcome. So, actually letting us express that can, contribute to change. So I think how you outlined it it was very powerful.
Yes, I totally feel I feel the tears. I feel it every time we've been part of relief. So you have to be very strong when you're into the relief, but evenings are terrible. Evenings are terrible because that's when you sit down and that's when everything comes on your head, You realize. So these are beautiful tears. These are the tears that we need. These are the tears, and the more of them, the better the world will be.
So Mamta, you shared so many beautiful lessons and learnings from nature with us during this conversation. Our final question is a difficult one for some people, but we're really curious, if you had to pick one, what is the greatest lesson that nature has taught you?
I think it's about being courageous in times of crisis. Resilience. Courage and resilience. I would pick on these two.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mamta, we close out every interview with 4 questions that we give all the guests. So they're a quick fire round of questions. And the first one for you is, what is your favorite place in nature?
The mountains.
We know that. Okay. What is one place that you have not yet visited but would really love to?
The Amazon forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned already the braided sweetgrass book, which we'll link in our show notes. But do you have another favorite piece of art, another book, poetry, film, or other that really connects you to nature?
There are many, but I have to say that there is this book called The Hungry Tide by Amitav Ghosh. I mean, you can even... I love Mamta Borgoyari book. So The Nutmeg Curse I think I would say that the nutmeg verse, which is it's a historical how we have of what colonization has done to nature and to people. And that's a book I think everybody who is working in the area of environment and climate justice should read.
Thank you.
And Mamta, what is one thing you would recommend to our listeners who want to better connect to nature?
Go into nature, go to the mountains, go to the river at least once a day. If you can't do anything, walk in the park. Look at the trees, like really look at them, and you will come back again and again. You will discover yourself. So, yeah, go into the wild.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mamta. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
I just loved it. Thank you.
Wow, Jessica. That was really special. Listening to Mamta, like I had no idea she had so many insights and learnings from nature. Listening to her just really touched me. I realized like this is exactly why we're doing this podcast, is to bring out these stories, these inner reflections from very accomplished leaders and bring it to light so people can listen to it and reflect on it.
Yeah, I felt that was just a really powerful experience to get to know her better and to, hear how nature has shaped her work. And, it was so beautifully expressed that I spent about half the interview just fighting back tears because I felt so moved by what she was saying. So that was an incredible experience for me, and I hope our listeners really took away something powerful as well.
Yeah, I mean, preaching to the choir here, because I also live in the mountains and I have that exact same affinity, where I feel so grounded and so rooted just being here around these beautiful 3,000-4,000 peaks, and that's nothing compared to the Himalayas. But one thing that I loved about her speech is embracing that feminine energy, embracing compassionate leadership, empathy, vulnerability, all kind of qualities that were traditionally seen as contradictory to being a leader because we've been operating on a masculine archetype of leadership. And especially like connecting it back to Mother Nature, how Mother Nature nurtures and cares for and gives and continues to give and is forgiving. And I thought, wow, that is really the quality we need to better embrace as humanity in these uncertain times, whether you are a man or a woman.
Yes, and there's a Dutch academic, will share some of his papers, but he talks about authentic leadership being needed for our new economy. And, we don't have all the answers. We don't have everything figured out. And, often we have the idea that leaders, will tell us where to go and what to do, but leaders themselves are face questions, and we don't all have the path charted, or in fact none of us knows 100% where to go and what to do. So I think expressing that vulnerability in the circumstances of very high degrees of change is really important. So I thought it was wonderful to hear that journey from Mamta and how she really harnesses that vulnerability as a leader. And I, really admire the work that she's doing, even if, she does express these vulnerabilities. It's a new type of leadership that we do need.
Yeah, for sure. And even that habit where she realized I need to go to nature to find myself, to gather that courage, that fierceness. And then even if I don't know the answers exactly, I will come back embodying a different quality, and the answers will happen and we will together solve the problems. I thought it was really, really powerful.
Yes. Well, we're so grateful that Mamta shared her time with us today, and it's been a fantastic journey to hear the interviews that we've done so far, and I'm looking forward to the next round.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for listening. This was Executives in the Wild with Diana Denke.
And I'm Jessica Smith.
Executives in the Wild is created by Diana Denke, Jessica Smith, and Robin Agustin. Those involved in the podcast are doing so in a personal capacity, and views expressed are not necessarily associated with their employers. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Executives in the Wild, or go to executivesinthewild.com, where you can sign up to be a part of our community. Please support us by subscribing and sharing this podcast, available on YouTube and most outlets including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.